So day 18 is going to be very simple. We are going to talk about time frames for SNR. Okay, so as you guys know, that support and resistance is something that I use in trading, right? So you have your support and you have your resistance, but you need to understand how to use your support, right? And obviously you need to have the right time frames. You do not want to be trading in the wrong time frame, so it's very important for you to understand what time frame is the best for you. So for me, I will always say this: if I have a resistance and this resistance is on my H1, but when I go into my H4 resistance, I have another resistance. Understand? Which one would I use? Always tell yourself to use the higher time frames. That is so simple. Okay? But still, most of you guys still do not know how to use it. Why do I always keep telling you guys to look for fresh breakouts or for stronger confirmations all in your daily, your H4 and even your H1? All of those are on the higher time frames. Why? Because those are the bigger time frames. The bigger time frames will give you the more accurate zones and the more precise zone. I want you guys to always understand, if you have a lower time frame SNR compared to a bigger time frame SNR, the bigger time frame SNR will always win. But then, what does it have to do with these smaller time frames? Might as well they just have it until M30 or even H1. Forget the small ones. Listen up. If you have a big time frame, let's say you have a price, your smaller time frames are entering your zone, but the smaller time frames are not listening to the higher time frames. So you're supposed to be selling here, right? But in the end of the day, price is still going on to an uptrend. Because why? Your smaller time frames are not listening to your higher time frames here. Because why? Your lower time frames are not listening to your higher time frames here. You need to make sure that when you enter a trade, you need to be using your smaller time frames. Okay? So, for one example, if I have my resistance level, okay? If I have my resistance level just right around this range, okay? I have it right just around this range. So, if let's say price breaks below and it comes back for me to look for more sells, but my lower time frame is telling me no, I'm still going on to an uptrend. It can happen, and you can even hit your stop loss. Because why? You were disregarding the lower time frames, LTFs. So you have to always keep your mind and tell yourself that when price comes into my first zone, it comes into my first zone here, I want to be looking for more stronger confirmations on my lower time frame, which is my M15. I do not want to be entering a sell in my zone when price is still doing this. I want to be entering in the zone when price is doing this. Okay? So that is what we call a reversal pattern. Okay, so now SNR, there will be a lot. So always tell yourself this: the smaller time frames gives you confirmation. The bigger time frames gives you a zone. So the reason why I use bigger time frames, such as my dailies, my H4 and also my H1, is because I know that they are more respected, right? Rather than comparing it with the smaller time frames. I can even have my weekly as my higher time frame, as my bigger time frame, and it shouldn't be a problem. Okay? So for one example, when price, this is going to be, let's say we have a beautiful resistance level. What people would think that if this is going to be M15, what people might think that this is going to be the resistance, so people can start to look for sells. But in fact, in the end of the day, if you look into your higher time frame, you will have actually a bigger SNR. So meaning to say, the bigger SNR is your H4 just above here. So this is going to be your H4. So you as a trader, a little scary trader, you know, that just normal trader type of person might think, oh, okay, I can start to look for my sells, right? So I sell. So when you sell, price breaks above, it continues reaching to your higher time frame. Understand? So these are all the mistakes that happens to retail traders. We get eliminated by the big banks or by our own careless mistakes. Always look for your higher time frames. When you see and when you find your higher time frame zones, use that zone to look for your confirmations using M15 and below. It's that simple. I promise you. It's not hard. So what is the sequence or what is the pattern going to be like? The best time frames to use. Okay, so first, let's say if you find yourself, so what is the best flow for time frames? So what does it mean by flow, right? What does it mean? Meaning by flow is you need to have a systematic flow before you go down to your lower time frame. Meaning to say you need to find your zones from your higher time frames to your medium time frames, then to your lower time. So let me give you an example. If I was looking for my fresh breakout, or if I'm looking for my SNR, if I start on a daily candle, I'm going to go down 2 time frames. So if I find my zone in my day 1, and if it's so big, I'm going to scale it down to my H1, 2 time frames down. And from my H1, if I'm going to look for my confirmations on my lower entries, I'm going to use my M15 all the way until my M1. That's it. So those are called flow. So you know which time frames are you supposed to start from and finish to. Okay? And let's say if I start on my H4, from my H4, I will go down to my M30. So if I find that my H4 zone is about 60 pips, I can scale down to a lower pips zone, understand? So perhaps from a 60 pips, I scale it down into my M30. I find another zone, it can be about only 20 pips, right? So then from my M30, I'm going to use my confirmations on my lower time frame, which is going to be my M15 all the way until my M1. Okay? And last but not least, it's going to be H1. From your H1, it's going to be M15, and for your M15, it's going to be all the way to your M5 and also your M1. It's that simple. So this is all the systematic flow. You need all of this. You need to know how to push yourself to use all these multiple time frames so that you can be very knowledgeable. So I hope you guys do understand about this part. It's really important for you to understand the time frames on different SNRs. Okay, every SNR will have a different structure. Every time frame will have a different SNR and a different structure. So you need to be using the right time frames and to look for your big zones, to look for your strong resistance or your strong support. You need to be using the bigger time frames instead of using the smaller time frames. Okay, and keep this in mind. Always keep this in mind. Buy low, sell high. Remember this forever. Why? Let's say you have found your H4 resistance. So when price is coming into your H4 resistance, you're using your lower time frame to look for your sells, right? So what you want to be doing is you want to be waiting for confirmations. You want to be waiting for a candle to do a breakout below, and when price is here, this is considered as selling low. When you want to sell, you want to be selling when it is high again. When it's going back up, then that's when you sell here to get your maximum profits. No matter what time frame you're in, tell yourself when you sell, when you buy, do it right. Ciao.